Thanks very much, Ella, for making yourself this little time to chat again with me today. So it would be great if you can explain, maybe for those who don't know, what infant mental health is.
Yeah. So when we talk about infant mental health, really we're talking about the well-being, the emotional, social well-being of the baby from birth to 3 years, but really we go up as far as about 6 years. And we want to bring the awareness to the fact that babies, small babies, have mental health needs, and really their mental health needs are met by their primary caregiver. In other words, their first relationships, their earliest relationships. Because when a baby is born, all of their tiny little organs are doing the same job that they're going to do for the rest of their lives. You know, their heart is beating away and so on and so forth. But the baby's brain is only very immature when the baby is born. So the baby's brain grows at a phenomenal rate throughout the first year of life, and in fact the first 3 years of life, when all of the skills of the motor skills and the language skills, the communication skills, and the emotional and social development, all of those skills are learned, and they shape the brain. And what shapes it is the experiences that the baby has in their first years. So those experiences are hugely important. And if we can give the baby the best possible start in the first year or years of life, that is the foundations set for the rest of their life, really, no matter what comes at them after that. If they have a solid foundation in that first year or those first years, they're going to be able to withstand a lot more of, stress and disruption to those relationships later on.
And I was thinking, having this consideration that those early years are so, so important. If we think about the relationships that they have with the primary caregiver, looking after that relationship is extremely important. And infant mental health would have a lot to do with that.
Absolutely. So, as you rightly say, it's those early relationships are incredibly important and incredibly formative for the baby. And so it's a lot of the focus for infant mental health is, trying to help nurture those relationships and look after the mental health of the baby's primary caregiver and primary caregivers. So I guess we are focusing primarily on those caregivers and parents whose own mental health might be quite vulnerable, or they have lots of challenges themselves with addiction or domestic abuse, or a very wide range of difficulties. So we'd be particularly mindful of babies born to parents who are already struggling with their own mental health. So it's important that we support those parents to develop a sound relationship, a solid relationship with their baby. Very often those parents perhaps didn't have the best parenting experience themselves. So in infant mental health, it really is about trying to build a strong relationship with the caregiver and give them the experience of being listened to, of being heard, of being validated, held, so that they can turn around and do that for their own baby. Many parents desperately want to do things differently than how it was done with them. But even with the best intentions, sometimes they fall into the old traps, because they maybe they get stressed, they get overwhelmed, and I suppose they go back to maybe what they know, what they experienced themselves.
And I was thinking initially, when you were talking about the experiences that we have, and what happens when we have a baby, and those sensory memories. So sometimes it's not that we react to the situation in a conscious manner. We're just reacting due to our own parenting, where we have learned that is so ingrained in us. So
Exactly.
being able to reflect on that, being able to bring to consciousness those moments and respond in a different manner, it is going to be a very big part of the work, the reflective capacity that we need to be developed. Know that we can practice over time, and that it can be done when we are working with somebody else, or when we are in a relationship with another person, that we continuously are practicing that. I was thinking, Ella, in the situation that we're going through now with the COVID and this situation that is happening all over the world, what do you think will be the impact?
The COVID lockdown restrictions have meant that, people are forced to stay at home more. So that's been particularly difficult, I think, on some people, especially if there's a lot of stress or abuse in the home. So, and I think just in general, though, people have maybe have noticed their own stress levels increasing. And I suppose you have to think about how that impacts on them and their relationships then with their children and infants, because children are incredibly sensitive to stress in their parents. If the adults are stressed, it can impact on the children, and the children pick it up. And, it can, so toddlers, for example, who may have being able to feed themselves or drink from their bottle or from a cup, for example, if they're stressed, they might regress a little bit to an earlier developmental stage. They might want to go back to taking the drink out of the bottle, or they want mum and dad to feed them, where they were doing it before themselves, things like that. Or they might just be a little bit more irritable, or they might have trouble sleeping. The routine might be disrupted a little bit. So I guess it's important for parents to understand that, acknowledge that, and, find ways to soothe their children and explain to them in age appropriate language, why things are so different now than maybe they were before. But also remembering that you have to look after your own stress levels so that you can mind your children, your baby, as best as you can. We would always encourage parents to manage their own stress levels. And that could be, I know we talked about it before, just through mindfulness. And, it could be the most simple and basic things, like just sitting down and having a cup of tea, or talking to a friend on the phone, or having a walk outside in nature, or, but just being mindful of the emotion and letting it come and letting it go, and,
Yeah, being able
trying to.
to serve that emotion. And I think you mentioned there mindfulness, that it gives us the opportunity there to be able to experience the emotions, the things that we're living, the sensations, the thoughts, in a very compassionate way. And that will have a huge impact on their relationship with our little ones. And a little bit about what you were saying, bringing to consciousness and that reflective experience that they can have, being able to manage our own stress, to be able to respond to them. That is a lot to do with the co-regulation that they need. So in the very early stages in life, they're going to depend on us to regulate their emotions.
And I think it's so important to be able to put words on it, even from a very early age, age appropriate, but, to say, I need my walk, because I'll be better able to be there for you when I come back.
Being able to give them that narrative so they can work constantly modeling the way we communicate. And as many times we say, well, children communicate as well through their behavior. So another thing that mindfulness can give us is to approach the behavior of a child from a place of curiosity, not so much from judging if it's right or wrong, but being able to really stop and observe and see what's going on.
If the mom is very stressed during her pregnancy, the baby has higher levels of cortisol. So, being mindful and practicing mindfulness throughout the pregnancy can be incredibly beneficial for the unborn baby. But I would love to see, a much greater knowledge of the social and emotional milestones. And I guess I'd even love the health professionals in the first instance to have that knowledge, and so that everybody who works with babies and toddlers has that information. So I think education is huge, education and training, not just the public, but really all of those workers that work in creches and preschools, midwives, the nurses, the doctors, the GPs, that they all have a very, very good understanding and knowledge of infant mental health. The health system is quite reactive in that way rather than being proactive. And sometimes it's harder to get acknowledgement for all the money you've saved the health service, rather than solving a crisis,
And it takes us back, I think, when you were talking about this reacting or response, to that reflective practice that a professional needs as well, isn't it? And the system as well. It's nearly the whole system that needs to look from another angle. Okay, what's going on here if we have so many children dealing with mental health issues, or dropping out of school, or involved in gangs, or so where is that coming from? And being able to ask ourselves that question without judging, but really looking into the issue.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's so important, that we don't sort of go down the blame route or being judgmental, just people don't ask to be born into a certain set of circumstances. They just are, So I guess it's really incumbent on us, those of us who have the knowledge about this, to really try and drive home the point that, the prevention is better than cure here, really. This applies across every country, across every culture, I think, of course, an awful lot of people have had very good experiences and are able to give their babies and children very good experiences. But in every culture, I think we have people who are going to struggle more with that. And I suppose it's really, as I said before, it's really incumbent on us to try and give those babies and parents, the best start that they can have, so that they have the best shot at, really reaching their potential as people, and making a really positive contribution to society. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll thank you so much for doing this chat again. And yeah, I hope we get to repeat this at some stage with some more questions. But I think we covered the basics. So maybe it's those who didn't know. I know we should know what is the infant mental health and why it is so important.